Hey, what's up guys? So next month Earth Day is coming, and considering that, I would like to show you how you can create a watercolor style earth illustration inside Affinity Designer. Now this is going to be a complete digital watercolor design, and it is mainly aimed at print on demand and especially for t-shirt designs. So guys, if you are interested in that, let's get started. Now before I start creating the illustration, I would like to mention here is that I'm using a Wacom graphic tablet. Now it's not necessarily necessary to use one, you can use any other brand as well, but if you do not have a graphic tablet, you can use mouse as well. You can almost get the similar kind of result, but it is highly recommended to use a graphic tablet. And if you are using an iPad, then of course you can use that with the Apple Pencil as well. So now that we are clear about that, let's start by creating a circle. And by the way, I'm using this document size to be a t-shirt design size that I usually use for Much by Amazon. And now the first thing that I'm going to do is create an ellipse shape, a perfect circle. By pressing the shift key, I'm going to create a big circle. Now it does not really matter what size it is, but it is better to use this size, which the one that you are going to use in your final design. So if this is the t-shirt design, I want my earth to be almost, let's say, this big, because I want some kind of letters or some kind of text or maybe other design elements along with it. So try to start creating the size that you are hoping to use in your final print or maybe final design. So yeah, now we have this earth circle. We are going to align it at the center, and I'm going to remove any kind of fill color from it and give it a stroke, maybe let's say give it 3-point stroke. Yeah, that looks fine. And then I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to create roughly just kind of like a generic looking almost something that would represent the the real continents. It does not have to be very, very precise, because we are not going to create this political style realistic earth, just artistic style art. So I'm just going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to try to create something that is going to represent this different continents. So maybe this is Africa, and then it comes down here to have this kind of illustration, this kind of area. So Europe, Asia and Africa. And I might want to adjust this one a little bit more so that we have some kind of large area to work with. So yeah, this looks fine. Maybe adjust this position here and bring it down. So you see that I have created these smooth lines instead of any hard lines. So if I have any kind of hard line, I would like to convert it into a smooth point here, because I do not want any kind of hard edges here. Okay, now that we are have adjusted this thing, it's time to maybe create the other side, or the Americas. So yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with how it looks. It looks kind of like earth, and that's all we wanted at this point. So now that we have our basic shapes ready, it's time to use the watercolors and the brushes. Now currently I am in this vector persona, and for creating this watercolor illustration we need to go to this pixel persona. So next to this designer persona, we are going to use this pixel persona. And now we have different set of tools. Let me just close this. We do not need the assets panel. So yeah, this is now our earth illustration, and we have layers panel open, and we have our brushes on this side. So I'm going to use this paint brush, and in this brushes panel right here, I'm going to use watercolor. And these are by the way, these are the default watercolor brushes that come with Affinity Designer. You do not have to install any third-party brushes. And in this using this brush tool, I'm going to use the default settings for the opacity and whatever the other settings are. We do not need any kind of mirror or symmetry. And the brush that we are going to start with is this second one here, large diluted watercolor brush. So I'm going to use this, select this brush, and I'm going to press the left, actually the right bracket key to make it bigger, and I want to choose a color first. So I'm going to select this slightly yellowish color here and start using the colors that are light, so from lighter to dark. So that's how we are going to move. So maybe yellow color, slightly orange, yellows, this kind of thing. And I'm going to press here and start creating maybe these desert areas to represent something like that, and slightly kind of like that, and fill it this area. You do not have to go beyond that, and that's fine. We have filled this area, and then I'm going to move towards slightly greener using the same brush. I'm going to make it slightly greener, lighter green color, and fill these areas, almost all of them. And then I'm going to move it even more green and bring the saturation down and maybe darkness like that, and try to fill these, and create random brush strokes in different locations like that. And then maybe move it to be slightly bluish green type of thing like that, and maybe even more darker, and then start maybe decrease the size of the brush and start filling these kind of areas. I'm just not dragging my pencil or this stylus. I'm just tapping in different location, maybe slight dragging in different location, and creating this kind of like patch style look to it, because then we are going to blend these things later on. So now that I have this darker area mixed with lighter colors and everything, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to select with this lighter color, yellowish color like that, and press in different locations like that, and fill it with this. And then I'm going to move with lighter greenish, slightly saturated and a little bit darker, and fill with that. So you can see that the lighter colors that I'm selecting, I'm using large strokes, kind of like blends, and then when I'm moving towards the darker ones, I'm kind of like creating different patched areas, not, you can say that, kind of like a blended thing. So maybe make it even darker, and then start creating patches on these locations. Okay, now that we have our patches and all that created in different locations, it's time to blend these colors. And in order to blend these colors, I'm going to use this tool called smudge brush. And in the brush panel, make sure that you select the same brush, large diluted brush. So large diluted brush is selected, and the tool that we have is this smudge brush, and we might want to increase its size by pressing the right bracket key, and then we are just blending these areas, and so that it looks kind of like a mixed color. We do not want to blend it too much, just so that we are not seeing those hard edges. So like that, and maybe blend these areas. So you can see that I'm just still remaining within these boundaries of the continents that I have created. I'm not going beyond it, and it does not really affect much, but try to keep it within these boundaries. So we are going to later remove any kind of, you can say that, colors that are going beyond these boundaries. Okay, now that we have finished this blending of these colors, it's time to create some kind of, like, you can say that, a little bit dense color areas as well. And for that we are going to use dense wash brush. And we're going to first select this paintbrush tool and move at the top, and if you hover over you will see that this is a dense wash brush. So select that one and choose the color that is going to be slightly saturated greenish. We are going to fill with this, so, and maybe slightly make it a little bit larger, and instead of dragging just start patching in different areas. So as you press lighter you will create small strokes, and if you press harder you will be creating those large strokes. So adjust your brush size as you see fit and start patching, creating these small dotted areas in different locations, and maybe change their color slightly to create a variation in it. So these kind of like hard patched areas will give our illustration kind of like a textured look and style that we want in our illustration. So now that we have created some patch area in different location, we are going to blend it using this smudge brush tool. And first we are going to use the same dense wash brush and try to blend them together. So we are selecting this one and trying to blend it, trying to remove those you can say that hard edges here, and you can see that it is not blending that well as compared to that large diluted brush. So currently I'm just trying to mix them together, and we are going to use them a little bit different brush here as well. But before I do that I want to slightly mix them. So in order to blend it even further I'm going to use the same smudge tool, and instead of that dense wash brush I'm going to use light diluted watercolor, or I can use this one fine to white sponge. So let's just first use white diluted watercolor, and I'm going to just slightly blend these areas that are showing to be too much have hard kind of like edges like that, and on this area as well. I'm just trying to make sure that we do not see any kind of, you can say, these white areas inside those black lines that we have for our continents, and do not have any kind of like hard small patched areas in our design here in these locations. And now that we have blended it at somewhat and got rid of those hard edges in different locations, we are going to then use another brush, that is this fine to white spongy brush and try to give it kind of like a have this grainy look, blended look to it. Now that I have finished blending these things, you can still see that we have these colors that are going beyond these boundaries of our continents. So either you can keep them as it and then clip them inside these continent lines, or one thing you can do is erase these areas. So I'm going to use the eraser tool, and in this brushes make sure that you select the same thing. So this large diluted watercolor brush, I might want to use this one, and decrease the size of the brush a bit and start removing or kind of like getting rid of these extra colored areas that are going beyond these lines and bleeding into that ocean parts of our planet Earth. So you do not have to be really precise in removing these colors. I'm just trying to remove the ones that are showing too much dense color in those areas. But now that we got rid of those extra colored areas, let's just see how it looks by hiding these dark lines. So you can see that we have this kind of like pleated kind of things, and still this looks fine, and we can keep our these dark lines for now. And now it's time to create those ocean areas. So I'm going to first select that ellipse shape that we created. I'm going to use this paintbrush tool, and I'm going to use the same brush, that is large diluted brush. In the color, I'm going to choose very lighter bluish color, like that, maybe somewhat like that. This looks fine. And then I'm going to increase the size of our brush by pressing the right bracket key, and I'm going to fill the whole thing. So I've selected this ellipse shape, and once I start clicking in these areas and start drawing, you will see that it will automatically create a new pixel layer and start filling those areas. So you see it has automatically created that pixel layer and started coloring on that layer. Now it is not affecting that green planets, actually green continents that we initially created. So make sure that you create these ocean areas on a different layer. So we have filled this almost, we got these kind of small white patches areas which we are not worried, and it actually gives our planet or our illustration more good look to it, and then kind of like a watercolor texture look. And then I'm going to increase my color and density a little bit, like that here, using the same brush. We have not changed the brush, and I'm going to fill the lower part and around the edges with slightly denser brush. I'm not pressing hard on the tablet, just lighter, and starting to create different kind of you can say kind of variation in that ocean thing. And then I'm going to move it even further, make it even blue, and decrease the saturation, make it even darker, and then start filling this kind of, we do not have to be too extreme about it, just slight patches here and there, and then maybe make it lighter, make it more saturated, little bit like that, to give it some patched areas on this down location. And then I'm going to blend these now. So I'm going to use this smudge brush tool, select the brush, same brush, large diluted brush, and increase its size, and then start blending these patches, darker patches that we created. So now that I have blended it a lot, let's just use another brush, that is this small brush, the same brush that we used for the creating dense areas in this continent areas, and that is this dense wash brush. So using this dense wash brush, maybe increasing its size a little bit, and in the color I'm going to choose maybe slightly darker and more saturated areas, and I'm starting to create, maybe make it slightly lighter here, and starting to create this dense in different locations, maybe create somewhat here, there, here, and maybe create more on the lower area, because I want to make it look like the water is flowing downwards, just to make it look kind of like a 3D spherical. So I have created different patched area, different dotted areas here. Then I'm going to use this smudge brush tool, and in the brushes I'm going to use that brush that we initially created, that spongy brush. So fine to wide spongy brush, and increase its size a bit, and try to blend in like that to have a little bit variation. You can see that dilute it a lot, just have a hint of that color in that area. And the same thing I'm going to do here. So I'm kind of like blending it, moving it along the curve of, you can say, that our sphere, to give it a curvature as well, to have it kind of like a 3D look. So guys, our illustration is almost ready, and it only might need some touches here and there, but before I do that, I want to see how it looks actually. So currently you can see these planet area, actually these continents, why I'm just calling these continents planets. Anyway, So these continent areas, these colored areas are going beyond this sphere, so we want it to bring it inside it. So all I have to do is just first select these lines and the original lines that we created. Let me undo it. So first select these lines and bring it inside that sphere, make it a child of that, and then bring this colored areas and maybe bring down those black lines. So our illustration is looking good now. Only thing is I do not like here at this moment is this black lines that it has, but we can always remove it. It is not a big deal. So let me just hide these one for now. So currently it looks like this. So when I zoom out it looks good, but when I zoom in a bit it does not look good. So we might have to keep those lines, but it is not really necessary. So first I'm going to select both of these continent area separate shapes, and at the top add them to a single curve, and then make this area, this planet, actually again planets and these continents, a child of that one, and then select that curve and remove any kind of fill color from it, actually stroke color from it, to give it a hard edge. Now it's looking much better. It still has these hard edges, but that's okay, it's an artistic illustration anyway. So without this one you can see that if it is without those hard edges it looks like that. So you might prefer this style, but I would definitely prefer this one. So this illustration is looking pretty good, and if you want to adjust you can always make some adjustment, try to color these different areas which look like straight lines and make it look even better. And one thing, the last thing that I would like to show here, and for that we need to go back to the designer persona. Now you want to use this illustration on a t-shirt, and currently it is on a white background and it looks good on this white background, but if I want to print it maybe on a black t-shirt it would not look good. So let me show you what I mean. So let me just create a rectangle shape and fill this, bring it behind it, and let's just fill it with black. So let's suppose this is a black shirt. So you can see that this illustration does not look good on a black shirt because it has transparency to it. We do not want transparency in our illustrations when we want to use it for print on demand. So in order to fix that, all I have to do is select that ellipse, the basic shape, and just give it a white color to make it look good, and then I can use it for whatever kind of t-shirt design I would like for my Earth Day. Another tip, if you have reached this part of the video, so another tip here for you guys. So if the colors look kind of like light or diluted to you, all you have to do is select that ellipse and apply a hue saturation layer and increase the saturation a bit like that, and maybe decrease the lightness to give it more dense colors. And you can always adjust these saturation area as well, but I would not recommend that to move too much. This slide should be around 0 or very close to it. Let me just put it, yeah, 0.5 looks fine, and we can make it a little bit dense and adjust it like that as you see fit. So yeah, this is looking fine, and let me just close it. So if I hide this hue saturation layer you can see that it's slightly lighter, but with this hue saturation layer it is a little bit dark area, darker earth design. So guys, that's how you can easily create a watercolor earth illustration for your t-shirt designs inside Affinity Designer. You do not have to go and buy any kind of traditional media, watercolors, or maybe a paper or anything. You can definitely create it inside your software. So guys, if you have found this video to be helpful and interesting, make sure that you like the video and let me know in the comments below what do you think about this tutorial. And if you have any confusion or questions about this tutorial or any part of it, you can ask me in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer those questions if I can and help you understand this process. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video, and thank you for watching.